Super Draco here, and welcome back to Pack 3 of Agora Build Optimus Prime. So, we're going to jump right into it. So, we've got parts TR3- well, this is a sprue TR3-38. We need parts 1, 2, and 3. Now, the instructions actually recommend popping these out instead of using a nipper. Now, it specifically says painted pieces, so that's why I tried popping them out here. So then we're also going to need sprue TR3-39. From 3-39, we only need part number 6. Oh, I'm sorry, and we'll also need part number 4. But we'll need number 4 a little later. So, even though I popped them out by hand, there's still some flash left on them. Well, at least I'm calling it flash, so I'm just cleaning them up with my nippers because they didn't pop out clean. So, I've vaguely set the pieces in the configuration you need them in. So then we need 4 of these rubber washers labeled TR-3-47. So these will go around the pegs to increase the friction on them. So again, I'm just making sure I have everything in the position relative to the instructions. So now in transit, some of my washers came off. They all have a little center section that you need to make sure is punched out. So that's one. And 2. So with those washers on, then we're going to start on part 6 onto the top and part 1 onto the bottom. Or in this case, 6 on the left and 1 on the right. Alright, so now that we've got those in place, now we need 2 more of the washers. Again, making sure all my configurations are right, because at the end of this you glue the finger covers on, so there is no fixing this once it's done. Well, there is fixing it, it's just not going to be easy. So with those in place, then we're going to drop the cover. Now there you see there's 2 offset pegs that'll rest in the grooves inside the thumb. And then with that done, we're going to lock it all together with 2 2x5mm PB screws. Okay, so then we're going to snap part 4 off of that sprue. Now this is one that you want to be very careful of because because you do need parts of the stem, so you want to make sure that you don't cut off parts of the stem or parts of the pegs, which is why I got my nippers just to cut right at the mold break. Okay, so next we need 3 of these parts labeled TR-3-45. And then 1 each is just going to go on each of the 3 pegs of that part. Okay, so then we need part TR2-28, and basically you want the the horizontal bars that are going to clip into inside of there, and my award-winning camera work is on display here. There we go. So you want it dropped all the way through like that. So then we're going to bring in our sprue, and we need part number 5. Okay, and so part number 5 is going to wrap around number 4, and with that clear plastic piece on the inside, like so. And then what we're just going to do is we're going to sandwich the thumb against this, onto this joint here. Just like that. And then we're going to secure that with 2 2x5mm PV screws. With this being a hand and being meant to help hold it in accessories, you want to make sure these fingers are as tight as you can possibly get the screws, which is why I even brought in my little red screwdriver that came in this set. So with that done, then we need sprue TR3-33. These are painted. These are the parts they want you punching out by hand. So with a little twist, they come right off. So these are to be glued on. So I've got my bottle of Loctite gel control, but before that, before you glue anything, you always do a test fit. Just like that, everything looks good. Now, some of those are fitting very tightly, some of them not. Now, I'm trying to tighten it up, and I just stabbed the crap out of myself. So, PSA, be very careful with your tools. And never forget the number one rule, that don't point them directly at you. So now that I'm happy with that, and as we can see, I'm starting to bleed, so let me go triage that and I'll be back.
One operation later.
Okay, so after some triage and some pressure, I'm back, and so we're going to get to gluing. So this gel control glue, I like it because it's thick, so I have better control over the volume and how much it spreads. So the instructions tell you to put it on a certain way. I find, depending on your test fit, you can find out how generous you need to be. And on a related note, yes, that really hurts where I stabbed myself. Eventually it stops, but that's besides the point. As we can see, that one piece is not sitting quite as tight as I would like it. But I'm going to give the glue some time to set. And then that second piece isn't wanting to stay, so I'm just going to add a little bit more glue to it. Dropped it in there, and now it's holding on a lot better. That piece is also still very loose, so let's add a touch more. And there we're good. So now I think we're going to move on. Now I'm just checking the articulation, making sure the joints are the tightness I want. And again, this is the opportunity to fix it. And so then we're going to move on. Okay, so now we need sprue TR3-30. So we need parts 12 and 14. And again, these are not snapping out clean, but these also aren't painted, so that's why I'm not afraid to take the nippers to them. So then we're going to need part 15 from sprue 3-41. And then we're going to need, finally we need one of the pieces from sprue 3-44, which has 4 identical copies of the same part. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is on part 12, we're going to add 2 of these black washers. I'm calling them washers, but they're some kind of rubber or rubber-like ring. They're just meant to add friction. Okay, so the top peg we will peg part 15 onto and part 14 onto the bottom. So that's 14. And that's 15. So then we're going to drop 3 more of those washers onto the 3 joints. So one of the ways you can tell if you have it right is there's actually a dedicated ring that the rubber washer will drop onto. So even though there's not a peg there, you can tell it's in the right position. So then we're going to drop part 3-44 onto that top peg. Now you can see it has molded in rings, so you want the molded in ring facing up, because you're going to put another rubber washer on it. Now I actually forgot to do that on this step, but I corrected that later. So then we need parts 13 and 16. 16 will go on the top and 13 will go on the bottom. And then once we have those in place, we're going to hold the finger together with 3 2x5mm PB screws. Okay, and so with that done, next we're just going to glue covers 7, 8, and 9 onto and this is the pinky finger, or the little finger, as the instructions call it. Alright, and with that done, we're going to move on to the next section. Okay, so the next 3 fingers are going to be the index, middle, and ring finger. And their builds are virtually identical to the pinky, other than the size of the finger. So instead of you sitting through me doing this repetitively all over again, I'm just going to fast forward it till the next portion. Okay, and once these 2 sections are glued on, I think that's where we're going to call this stage. So thanks for watching. Check out my fantasy story on Fiction Press, and see you for the next one.